Welcome, everybody, to All Even Live exclusive. I am Barry Grant Jr., host of the All Even podcast. To my left is the great Matt Cataruzolo. Down on the bottom is Mike Guido, host of Guido's Gridiron Blitz. And who we have on the show today is a Newhouse grad. He has his own podcast, JP Hoops Pod. Justin Paura, welcome to the show, my man.
Hey, my guy, thank you so much. Appreciate the shout out for the podcast.
Yes, sir.
Really happy to be here, chopping up with you boys. It seems like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Of course. So first off, before we even start, how are you doing? How is your family doing with this interesting time that we living in?
Yeah, man, everything's good. I graduated in the middle of everything going on. So got sent home from school literally a year ago now. Graduated, able to find some work, doing some stuff from home.
Awesome.
And yeah, just been podcasting, got really lucky. None of my family members ever got sick yet. We're still trying to be as safe and sound as we could right now. But, everything's looking up, not to speak too soon, but,
Right.
Things are getting that way. So we're excited.
That's good, man. That's good. So go ahead, Matt, kick it off, my man.
All right, bro, listen, not trying to waste any of your time here. I just want to dive right into some really hot NBA talk. So listen, we got the trade deadline next week. I know you're a big LeBron guy. Is there one move that you want to see the Lakers pull off by next week's deadline?
Yeah, I think, when you talk about the Lakers, it's basically an arms race right now, right? It's between the Lakers and the Nets. I think that it's kind of set up for a collision course in the NBA Finals. Not to say there are teams in the West that can't stop the Lakers from getting there, but I think when Anthony Davis comes back, that's really going to be that last piece. Something that I brought up on the podcast on Tuesday, as JP Hoops comes out every Tuesday, Friday. Miles Turner is a really popular name on the trade block right now.
Yeah.
And I think especially with Anthony Davis sitting out for about another month, it seems like, and they really don't have that dominant paint presence without him there. And, that's depth that they lost from last year's team. They don't have JaVale McGee. They don't have Dwight Howard. And then they were basically rolling with AD and Marc Gasol. Marc Gasol is a player that we all have great memories of, and he's wonderful, but he's not the same rim protector and player that he was, with Memphis, even with Toronto when they won. So I think they need
a
big guy. I think they also, more importantly, have to stop the Nets from getting a big guy, because I think that's the only piece of the puzzle that the Nets need if they want to, basically wrap up the championship. So it feels like either Andre Drummond, Miles Turner are going to be the two big man names, especially now that PJ Tucker got traded to the Bucks yesterday. So I think Turner to me is the better player. So you got to try and make a move for him if you can.
Yeah, I'm a Cleveland Cavalier fan, unfortunately. So, LeBron James has broken my heart a couple of times, but he's also, filled my heart a bunch of times. But I would absolutely love to see the Lakers add Andre Drummond. Just because, I've seen what he can do this year. The guy pulls down 13 and a half rebounds a game. Okay. His field goal percentage is upwards of 47.5%. Okay. He can score a little bit, and he can definitely protect the rim. I think he's everything that the Lakers would need. And he plays a limited role. He wouldn't be somebody who's forced to do, he's not asked to do more than he can. So, you brought up Miles Turner and Andre Drummond. I mean, I don't know if that's a possible trade possibility, just because, nobody's trading for NBA players anymore. It feels like they're just waiting for the buyout market.
Right.
Andre Drummond seems realistic.
Yeah, and when you talk about Miles Turner too, and what the Lakers gave up to get Anthony Davis, they basically traded every piece that they have that they would use to get a guy like Miles Turner. And the Pacers aren't dumb. They're a team that's trying to compete in the playoffs in the current stage. They have the players. Caris LeVert's coming back. They made the Oladipo trade to get a guy like LeVert to play with, just all of the pieces there. Malcolm Brogdon's amazing too. So it feels like that's a little less realistic, even though I think he's the better of the two players, really, because they do the same exact things, except Turner could shoot the ball better. But, I agree with you. Drummond, it's going to be in the buyout market. He's basically going to have his pick between the Nets and the Lakers. And, one thing we heard a lot about last year is that Anthony Davis really rather not play center. He wants to play that 4 role. He wants to be able to stretch the floor.
Agreed.
If you have Andre Drummond swapping in and out with Marc Gasol, that gives AD basically 100% of his minutes playing the power forward.
Yeah, that's a really, really good take. But my thing is this with the Lakers is that they are financially strapped right now. That they're kind of pushing onto the hard cap, and they don't really have that much flexibility. We just saw what PJ Tucker went for in a trade, and for a 36-year-old guy that's still a high level defender, that was a huge tag to put on him. So if that's what the market is dictating, I don't see the Lakers having a shot at getting anybody of even an ilk of a Miles Turner unless that they're really trying to dump a guy like that. So, I think Miles Turner would be like on the high end for the Lakers, but I think that they need to start looking at guys like Mo Bamba. They have to look at guys like JaVale McGee. Hopefully he gets bought out. They can be able to get him back, or if he gets traded, they can be able to then, all right, if he gets traded, the other team buys him out, they can be able to get him on the market like that. But, the Lakers are in a really tough position. And what I wanted to ask you is that Rob Pelinka's plan in the offseason, it was sound. Everybody said, okay, I see where he's going with this. It's backfired. How does he fix this? Because I don't really see a path to fixing this, man, to be honest with you.
I wouldn't say that much has backfired. I think, to your point, the main issue with the team right now, especially with the Anthony Davis injury, is that they're getting exposed in the interior. But we're still talking about a team that is in the top 5 in defense in the entire league. And LeBron James is playing at an MVP level. And, as Mr. Cavaliers fan under me in the Zoom graphic would say, when LeBron James is playing, no matter what type of team's around him, that team's going to do pretty damn well. So I think what's going on in LA is considered backfiring. They're still the 3rd seed in the Western Conference. The 2 teams ahead of them being Phoenix and Utah. I really don't see Utah sustaining the success, at least through the playoffs, just because, what have we seen? A common theme ever since
Utah.
Probably since we've been watching basketball. You need a superstar. And I love Donovan Mitchell. He's great. I think he does a lot of things well. I think he's a terrific player. He is not go get me a basket in 2 minutes left in a 4th quarter game in the NBA Finals. It's not the type of guy that he is. So I think when you look at the top of the Western Conference and you see the Lakers still there, yes, Anthony Davis not being there is the reason why they aren't killing teams, and that's part of the reason. The offense is nowhere near what I think people expected it to be, because to your point, you said, oh, they went out and got Dennis Schroeder. They got Montrezl Harrell. That means that you're adding scoring to this team, but the scoring has somehow gotten worse. The defending's got better, but the scoring quite isn't there. So I think when you get AD back and you hope that you get a guy like Drummond, I said Miles Turner, that's very realistic, to everyone's credit. When you talk about a trade in today's NBA, you kind of got to give up a lot, and they don't have a lot to give. But when you think about the buyout market, you get a Drummond, and that's only going to solidify what is a top defense in basketball and get a little bit more scoring. Then you got Godzilla coming back for the NBA playoffs. It doesn't seem like I don't know what team in the Western Conference I would take to be the Lakers when Anthony Davis comes back. I really don't.
I get you. Before you go, man, I just wanted to ask him about this.
Yeah, go ahead.
The calf injury that Anthony Davis has. Do you think that it's a calf injury, or do you think that it's something more? Because my personal opinion, when it first happened and everybody was like, oh, it's a calf strain, he's going to be evaluated within 2 to 4 weeks. I said to my partner down there, Mike Guido, I said, he's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks, because that looks a lot like what Kevin Durant had. And, they don't want to reveal that. That's cool, because, everything is attached. If it's not torn somewhere, they can't come out and say that it's a torn Achilles. But at some point, the way I feel as a Laker fan, he's a ticking time bomb. What are your thoughts on that?
That's been the knock his whole career, right? That he can never stay healthy.
Yeah.
And the reason I think that the Lakers were able to get that NBA trophy last year is because they had the nice long break. 36-year-old LeBron James got a couple months off his body. Anthony Davis was not injured for the first full season, really, of his career.
Right.
And now, of course, there's this nagging injury. And I was going to say the exact same thing. When Kevin Durant had his calf injury,
Right.
we weren't talking about it. And everyone kept saying, oh, he'll be back next week. He'll be back next week. Oh, now it's going to be a month. Now it's going to be 2 months.
Right.
He finally comes back and, he goes off for about 10 minutes. And then we all saw it. We all saw his calf.
Right.
And you could say it's a calf injury. You know what? Sure. But if I'm not a doctor, but I know enough that anything that's in that area between your heel and your knee on the back of your body, they're all connected. And that Achilles is the one injury. We see Kevin Durant. Yeah, he's back, but now he's dealing with injuries for a while. He hasn't played in seemingly a month. And now we have Anthony Davis, and players just aren't the same after that happens.
Absolutely.
So if they are holding him out for the right reasons, which I believe they are, because they say, when you come back, we need it to be meaningful basketball. In the regular season, yes, seeding matters, especially in the West. It doesn't matter nearly as much as when you get into these playoffs.
Absolutely.
And if he's able to, at least kind of keep himself up, they'll be fine. But, the chances of him aggravating that, they're pretty good. They are pretty good.
It's very high. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. So it'll be something definitely to follow, and we're going to see a lot from him going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting what's happening right now in Brooklyn. I mean, you got Durant sidelined indefinitely right now with the hamstring injury, but when they made the move for James Harden, Justin, I want to know if this was kind of like whether your immediate reaction or kind of over time you saw that this is what they were doing. So load management has been the talk of the NBA for the past couple of seasons. So when they traded for James Harden, right, and they're 14-1 in their last 15 games. Harden had a 41-point triple-double last night without KD or Kyrie. So they're doing okay right now with both of their superstars out. Before they even had James Harden, they feared that how would these cohesive pieces try to play together? So did you think that they tried to, when they acquired James Harden, was that kind of an insurance policy because they had hesitations about Durant's injury, or was it just to add sheer firepower, like you said earlier with the arms race?
I think so. If we remember, we go back a couple months when this trade happened, Kyrie Irving wasn't speaking to anybody. He basically went ghost. No one knew what he was up to. He was seen partying in a club with no mask for his sister's birthday, but he didn't tell any of the coaches. He told some of his teammates, and no one really knew exactly what was going on. So I think in the moment, it seemed like an insurance policy for Kyrie, because they knew that when they got Kevin Durant, signed him to a 4-year deal, it was their window. That window opened once that signature hit the paper with Kevin Durant. And yes, Kyrie's great, I'm sure. We've seen what he could do. We saw the 2016 finals. We see that he was a number 1 overall pick. He is a terrific basketball player, but he is certainly a head case. And we don't really know what he's going to do from time to time. And I think that he's a baller. And when he's on the floor, I think there's no question he's the 3rd best point guard in the league, behind Steph and Dame, who are just both out of this world. And he's right there in that category when he plays. But you never know when he's going to play.
Right.
And my immediate reaction to Harden was, all right, they realize they're going to have Durant. For as crazy as Durant is on social media and the burner and whatever it may be, he loves playing basketball. It's his favorite thing to do. He will be there. He's going to try and compete for championships. And in today's NBA, you need another guy. And they went out to get Harden, who is the number 2. He's the guy. And he even shoved Kyrie over. He said, hey, I could be the point guard. I love this role. And, to be honest, before the season, I never really cared for James Harden. I never thought the way that he was playing in Houston was ever going to match what a championship culture brings, because it was so isolation. It was so do whatever you want. 4 guys stand on the perimeter, wait for you to make a move. And that's how they played basketball. And that's why I don't think Houston ever won a championship. Everyone talks about how they missed 27 threes against the Warriors. Yeah, because that's how they play. They have the one guy who beats his man off the dribble. He's amazing at it. And then he's either going to get to the basket or kick it out to 3. So
Or
they
get
were
fouled.
finally sending everybody at him, and then he gets the ball to them, and they're not doing anything. And this was the Rockets who had Trevor Ariza. I believe Covington wasn't there, but Chris Paul was there. So that was the style of basketball that I kind of loathed. And I love a team like the Warriors where it's all just get rid of the ball, go, get open, run without the ball. That was not happening in Houston. But ever since James Harden got to Brooklyn, I mean, he's a completely different player. He's a perfect point guard. He scored the 41-point triple-double, but he hasn't been doing that. When he has one of these other guys on the floor, he's looking to find them. He's looking to find Joe Harris. He's looking to find Jeff Green. And he's prioritizing that over scoring. And I think that's really the first time in his career since he's left Oklahoma City where he's really relishing that role of having other superstars around him. So I'm very happy what I'm seeing from Harden. And, he's one of the best guys in the NBA. I never wanted to admit it because I hated seeing the play style in Houston, but what he's doing in Brooklyn is really changing my opinion.
Yeah, you and I are in the same boat on that. James Harden, I think, is playing the best basketball of his career right now. He's doing
1,000%.
everything, and he's making himself look like he's the best point guard in the league when he isn't a point guard. Like it's unbelievable. And I think a lot of what happened with volume scorers, guys historically like James Harden and players of that caliber, that high volume, not very efficient, put up a ton of shots, miss more of them. Like it just those types of players is that when they give the ball up, they're afraid the ball isn't going to come back, right? They feel such a responsibility to score the ball that when they do give the ball back, there's that little thing in the back of their mind that says, well, he's got a bigger shot at missing his shot than I do, right? And I hold a lot of the bearing on whether or not we win basketball games. So I do think it's really impressive what James Harden's been able to do. But the other thing that I want to talk to you about is, Brooklyn to me now looks like they're the best team in the East. They look like they're the best team in the league right now, even without Kevin Durant. And it's amazing what they're doing. But if there's a team in the East that's got a shot at beating them, who is it?
Oh, I mean, I agree with you. I don't think there's another team that's close, but I have to give it to Philly. And, I know we just saw a really close game last night where Philly took on Milwaukee, but let's remember Philly was on the back end of a back-to-back. They had a really hard-fought game against the Knicks. So they weren't at their peak excellence of Philadelphia 76er basketball. But something that I've really been hammering all season long is that this is it for the process. We've all been hearing trust the process, still processing this, that. We need to see it come to fruition.
Right.
Everyone wanted Brett Brown out of town. That was the big problem. Everyone hated him in Philly. They hated that fit for the Sixers, and they all blamed him for losing. Well, they go out, they get Doc Rivers, who's the best coach available on the market. Then the problem was, they didn't have enough shooting. There are no shooters around. Ben Simmons can't shoot the ball, so who's going to shoot it for him? They went out and they got Seth Curry, and I think Tobias Harris is playing the best basketball of his career. And right now, I think Ben Simmons is the easy chance for Defensive Player of the Year right now. He locks up any player that he guards. He can guard 1 through 5. He's sensational. And even what he does off the ball, he doesn't allow players to see it once they pass. So I really like what he's doing. And again, Joel Embiid is the only other person I can scream my head off about LeBron James wanting to win MVP. If they're not going to give it to LeBron James, they're going to give it to Joel Embiid 1,000%. So I think that when you look at what Philly has done, especially compared to last year after they get swept by Boston in the playoffs, they have the 2 superstars that you look for. I think the only other team that you could put in this conversation is Milwaukee, but there's Chris Middleton, isn't it? He's not Ben Simmons. He's not Joel Embiid, if Giannis is one of the other two guys. So I think you have to look at Philly, what they do on both ends of the floor. They're the biggest threat to Brooklyn when it comes to winning the East, even though I don't think it's much of a threat at all.
Yeah, I think I disagree with that point. I think Milwaukee has a shot because defensively, they got some dogs. And when you talk about Drew Holiday, you now put PJ Tucker there. That is a team that will defend. They're long, they're aggressive. And the one thing that they didn't have last year is dogs. They got two of them now. Everybody wants to call Giannis a dog. I don't think he's there yet. I think he has the potential, but putting him with a PJ Tucker and a Drew Holiday, it will make him feel more comfortable being in that position.
Yeah, so, but Giannis is still defensively stellar, though.
I wouldn't say
like
stellar.
Giannis isn't
I think he's good.
Was he defensive player of the year 2 years in a row?
What does that mean?
Last year, yeah.
Last year.
Yeah, I mean,
Marc Gasol
the guy's 7 feet tall. He's got 9.5 feet.
Marc Gasol won a defensive player of the year and didn't even finish first team all defense. Let's just be honest. He had a great offensive year.
Defend. Let's not pretend like he can't defend.
He wasn't the defensive player of the year, in my opinion, last season. It was AD.
Okay, but that doesn't mean that he can't defend.
He's not a great wing defender.
The guy protects the rim like a center and can steal the ball like Steph Curry.
I disagree. But
you're out of your mind.
Here's my question for you. What's wrong with Boston? And do you think it's a problem of coach, players, or what I've been saying since day one? Because, like I said, I'm a Laker fan. Danny Ainge. I think Danny Ainge is the problem. What's going on in Boston? It has nothing to do with Brad Stevens. It has nothing to do with Jason Tatum. It has nothing to do with Jaylen Brown. The roster stinks, and that's because of Danny Ainge. He's been always labeled this draft guru, or he harbors all of these draft assets and Mr. Trade, but he has struck out numerous times in the draft over the last few years. He struck out in free agency. He let guys just walk without getting any value for them. You see what Gordon Hayward is doing. You see what Al Horford is doing. What is your take in regards to what the actual dilemma is in Boston?
I think so. You mentioned three different parts of it: coach, players, and general manager. And to be completely honest, I think it's a combination of the three. But let's build off your point for a little bit with Danny Ainge.
Yeah.
2 off seasons ago, Anthony Davis was the big name on the market.
Yes.
Who was in that conversation? The Boston Celtics. What happened? The price was too high.
Right.
Then we saw Kawhi Leonard hit the open market, free agency.
Yep. Celtics
are in on there, but the price was too high.
Right.
I need to get something else. He doesn't go there. James Harden's on the trade market. Celtics are in that conversation. Maybe that will put them over the top after they made the Eastern Conference Finals last year. But for some reason, the price was too high for them. It's the inability for Danny Ainge to accept the idea that he could lose a trade when he gives up that much.
Right.
And remember, this is the guy who everyone wants to say pulled off one of the biggest finesse deals of all time. Everyone loves the trade where they give up Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett and they get everything from the Brooklyn Nets. And look, they got 2 first-round draft picks that wound up being Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, who are the cornerstone players of that team. Well, guess what? They made that deal with the Nets. The Nets since then failed to accomplish anything with that team, hit rock bottom,
reset.
They're now the best team in the East.
Right.
And what has Boston done? Then made a couple Eastern Conference Finals. Is that what the standard is of a 16 championship winning franchise? It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
And I think that they're kind of diminishing what the standard is, especially in a sports market like Boston that had the Patriots who win a championship and reload and get big players every single year, and the Boston Red Sox who have Mookie Betts and win World Series all the time. Even the Bruins are a reputable hockey franchise. And now we have the Boston Celtics, who, yes, they got the big guys in that deal. They were able to draft Jason Tatum. That's a wonderful thing. Good for them. Jason Tatum's a future superstar. But every single year, it feels like we talk about Boston. When is the year they're going to break through the glass ceiling? And this version of this team is underachieving like still, and they don't have a stud, because every time a stud can come their way, it seems as if there's a problem with what the Celtics have to give up. And I think that's a pride thing with Danny Ainge. And I don't think it's, it doesn't get talked about enough because people want to run Brad Stevens out of town. No one said a word about Brad Stevens when he nearly made the NBA Finals with Isaiah Thomas playing point guard and no other superstar. But now all of a sudden he's the problem because it's the same exact team now and they're still not winning.
Yeah.
It's
Brad Stevens.
I agree with
you. Not the issue.
No, it's not.
Brad Stevens is your bright spot.
That's what I've been saying. It's like I said on my show on Tuesday, Justin, is that if Brad Stevens were to get fired today, he would be the hottest commodity in basketball, not just in the NBA, but in college, at the high school level, wherever you need a coach. Brad Stevens will be number one.
Indiana would give him
just fired their coach,
$1 billion to be their head coach right now.
But my take was if Danny Ainge were to get fired or he would be relieved of his duties, no one would give Danny Ainge another shot in hell because his track record is awful. His drafts have been awful. Outside of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, they've been awful. Greg Williams, Ojale, you keep going on. He's failed and failed and failed. And you look at this roster, it has failure written all over it, and it's all Danny Ainge. So, yeah, I agree.
And we talk about, those two draft picks. Like, congratulations, you had 2 third overall draft picks and you hit on them.
Right.
If you had the choice of everyone in the NBA except for, in the draft pool, except for 2 players, you're probably expected to get one of those guys. And look.
And think about it, too. In that draft, Philly took Fultz. They took what's his name?
Markelle Fultz.
Yeah, Markelle Fultz. Right. So Tatum falls to you at 3. Like, come on now.
And to Boston's credit, so here are the 2 things Danny Ainge has on that track record. We talked about the first one, the Brooklyn trade, and the Celtics had the number 1 overall pick that year. They just knew they wanted Jason Tatum, and they knew that the Lakers were going to take Lonzo Ball, and they knew that the Sixers were hoping that they could get Markelle Fultz, but everyone thought Markelle Fultz was going to be the number 1 pick no matter what. Yeah. So they traded spots with Philly.
Right.
So he deserves some credit for that just for scouting. But again, we're talking about a top 3 draft pick no matter what. So, they could have kept the number 1 pick. They would have taken Jason Tatum and they would have been right. So congratulations.
Exactly.
And what does that mean? Still not winning anything.
I agree.
Yeah, Justin, I want to stay in the Eastern Conference just for a second. I feel like we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about your Miami Heat. I know you're a big Heat guy. So right now they're 4th in the Eastern Conference, right? They're 22-19. They just acquired Trevor Ariza, but they've sort of floundered recently. There's Kelly Olynyk trade rumors. What do you think is the right move to put the Heat in the right direction to get back to where they were last year?
Man, I love talking about the Heat. When the season started and they were losing as badly as they were, I think at one point they were the 13th seed in the East in January. And I was ready because, look, everyone wanted to make a huge deal. The Lakers had the shortest offseason of all time. Yeah, so did the Miami Heat. And, when we're talking about 20-year-old Tyler Hero, who has never experienced an NBA season, and this is his first offseason. Duncan Robinson is a young player. This is his first offseason. Kendrick Nunn, who is second in Rookie of the Year voting, has his first real offseason. People didn't want to talk about that as much as the Lakers for whatever reason. And I said it. I predicted that the Heat would struggle out of the gate. Now they're back. Now they're the 4th seed in the East. I believe they've won after the loss yesterday, I think it's 11 of their last 13 games that they've won. They went into the All-Star break hot, have since exited the All-Star break hot. I think Trevor Ariza coming in plays the exact same piece that Jay Crowder played for the team last year. And he was one of the team's most important players because, he's a 3-and-D guy. He's a culture guy. He tries really hard. And, there's something to be said about that Heat culture, as it is a real thing. Players try harder when they're here. They're less selfish, and it all pieces together. Now, I said before, I was never necessarily a James Harden fan before this season. And when the rumor was that maybe the Heat would make a pull for James Harden, I was devastated because I knew it meant no more Tyler Hero, who is one of my favorite players in the league. It would probably meant the end of Duncan Robinson. It probably meant the end of Kendrick Nunn. And then we'd be going all in for this guy who hasn't proven he can win a championship. Well, now, obviously, I wish that he was on my team because it seems like he can do all of those things. And, we've seen some of these younger guys struggle now in this season, even though, they're going to grow into great players anyway. But, Harden would have been the great guy. And now I think we offloaded Myers Leonard. We are going to offload Kelly Olynyk. And I think now the next chance is we need another big guy about Bam even a little bit. So I think, again, not to beat a dead horse, but Miles Turner being on the trade block is a very important thing. It would be a great role for him. And we actually have the assets to give to get a player like him. And I'm also all aboard. It's not going to happen this trade deadline, but Bradley Beal to Miami 2021 is going to be a huge movement of mine. And I'll be very excited to see that happen as well. But not this trade deadline. Definitely. We're looking at the summer. We're looking at the summer.
It makes zero sense why the Wizards keep hanging on to him every single year. They just capitalize on your investment, please.
I don't get it, man.
I don't get it.
Great.
Either.
He's amazing. Yeah.
Free Bradley Beal.
Free Bradley Beal. Yes, you could join me. We could be the two big podcasts that are full free Bradley Beal podcasts.
We'll get it. We'll collaborate and get it done.
Yes, all in. Let's go.
I want to see Bradley Beal with the Lakers. I think he'd be a perfect fit next to
Yes.
LeBron. But anyway,
I agree.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, are the Knicks any good?
There's not much else that you need to ask about that, right? Just are they actually good?
They're 8th seed right now. They're 20-21. They're one of the better defensive teams in the league.
They're good, man. They're legit.
Are they any good?
They're good. They are good. And I've been wrong about them, and I'll admit to being wrong about them. When they were hot in the beginning of the season, the way that I framed it on my podcast was, oh, this is great. Julius Randle's trade value is through the roof right now. So when the Knicks inevitably crash and burn, that will be a great investment for them. They're going to get a lot for him. But now it's a thing where, oh, wait, this is a team that's actually trying to compete. Who knew? And it's great. Julius Randle's a very well-deserved all-star. I think Emmanuel Quickley is the steal of the draft. He's going to be the starting point guard for a long time at that team. Not a lot of people want to talk about RJ Barrett and the strides that he made this year because everyone's eyes are glued to Zion and LaMelo Ball and John Morant. People forgot that RJ Barrett was the actual scorer on that Duke team a couple of years ago. And, he wasn't great last year, but he's been a terrific player for them this year, a starting player. So, look, I don't know with what Thibodeau does as a coach, if it's sustainable for multiple years, because Julius Randle is playing over 40 minutes a game, which is ridiculous.
That's Thibodeau's MO, is that whenever he gets a guy that is a quality guy, he will run him into the ground. Right. That's what he does.
Right. And you know what? To be fair, that's why they're good. And teams don't want to do that because they want to protect their investments. But Thibodeau says, well, if I'm here and I'm trying to make a statement and prove that I'm a good coach, why wouldn't I have my best player on the floor? And when Obi Toppin is the backup and we haven't seen much from him at all, it kind of makes sense as to why that's happening. But for the short term, it looks really good. I think they're a playoff team. They could actually cause problems in the playoffs, I think, because they are one of the better defensive teams in the league. And we just saw them on a back-to-back, no days rest. They went to the death with Brooklyn. They went to the death with Philly. So I think that says a lot about the culture kind of starting to grow a bit in New York, as it's just been abysmal since Carmelo left. And now they're starting to grow something and be competitive. And that's something I definitely could say I didn't expect to see this year. And I don't even think Knicks fans thought that either. So I'm not alone.
No, definitely not.
No, definitely, man. So, the fact that we're talking hoops, I love it. And it comes, this is the time where I like to go on my Clippers bashing
Yes, sir.
rant.
Perfect
So,
time
the Clippers are 26-16 right now. They are 4-6 in their last 10 games. They don't look good, and they haven't looked good. I remember when they put the team together last season, and my man Mike Guido is down at the bottom. He can attest to this. Is that he was like, man, Barry, listen, the Clippers look good, and I told him, just wait.
Well,
they'll reveal themselves. Well, hey.
Okay. Here's my honest question.
They're bad.
Here's my honest question.
They're bad.
No, they're not bad. Okay. But yes, this. I've never been a guy that obsesses over the Clippers. I've actually been on your side most of the time on questioning the Clippers. But
yes, I agree.
My question has always been, Kawhi Leonard is still Kawhi Leonard. Paul George, terrible in the playoffs. I understand that, but Paul George in the regular season is playing the best regular season basketball of his career this year. Okay. All I'm saying is if you size up the West and let's assume that Anthony Davis is healthy, who is outside of the Lakers, who can you definitively say is better than the Clippers? That's my only question.
Give me Utah.
I don't know if I take Utah. Who do you like more, Kawhi or Donovan Mitchell? And Justin, feel free to weigh in on our arguing. This is
I like Donovan Mitchell over Waldo George. I'll tell you that much. Go ahead, Justin. I'd like to hear your Clippers rant because you know where I stand with this, Mike. I want to hear from Justin. What are your thoughts on the Clippers? Because to me, they still look like a team that looks like they don't trust each other. Oh, he's gone.
We lost him
back. Yeah, we lost him.
Okay, we'll get him back.
Having some connection issues, so we'll get him back.
I was afraid that was going to happen.
Paul George, we all know that he's a regular season guy, but playoff wise, I don't see how they compete with Utah. I don't see how they compete with them. I'm going to be honest.
If you were going to say Phoenix, I would agree with you on Phoenix because I think Phoenix, I think could give the Lakers some run. I really do. I think Phoenix is that good.
Well, the thing is, I see. The thing is with Phoenix, I just don't know if
here he is.
Here he is. Okay, I just don't know if they're legit. Like they're having a great season, but man, I don't know. So yeah, Justin, what are your thoughts on the Clippers, man?
Yeah, sorry about that. I had
That's all right.
So I'm on the phone now, but
yeah.
So to Mike's point, when you say that they still have Kawhi Leonard, I think that's something that doesn't get talked about enough because he is 2 years ago, we thought Kawhi Leonard was him and LeBron. That was the conversation because of what he did in Toronto. We haven't seen anyone do it in Toronto because of just the history that they have there.
Right.
And now he went in, just was there 1 year, won a championship. Then he left. He was the biggest free agent out there. He signed with the Clippers, and they underperformed last year. And it was embarrassing how badly they underperformed. And that's on Paul George. And he's pandemic P forever in my mind. That's the big problem with him.
Yeah.
So, and look, it's not fair to do this, though, where we say, oh, you can do whatever in the regular season, then you get to the playoffs and you choke. And now we are in the regular season. We're saying, oh, they're not performing to the standard that they should be doing in the regular season. Now they're terrible again. But we're at a point, I think, with the Clippers that they're going to make the playoffs. They're going to be a top 4 seed. They are, going to have a couple of battles. It looks like at this point it's set up for them to play Denver again in the first round of the playoffs, which
Right.
I would love to see. And it's just, you got to do it. And it's on Paul George more than anybody because, look, I don't think anyone questions that Kawhi Leonard is a beast and he's going to do what he does when the playoffs come. I mentioned Donovan Mitchell not really being a take it, make it kind of guy. That is Kawhi Leonard. And as long as Paul George is there helping him along the way with the season that he's having right now, if he even does a shred of that in the playoffs, I think they'll be okay. I don't think they're there with the top 3 teams, but I think they are. They have to beat Denver just to get that monkey off their back. And then look, if they get matched up against a 1 seed and that 1 seed is Utah, they should win that series too, in my opinion.
Like I said, as a resident, I know the Clippers. I know exactly what's going on with them. The fact that they have to concentrate on, space heaters and dehumidifiers living in the basement. There's a lot of things that they have to, really be concerned about. So, I look at this roster. They're not that impressive to me. I like Ty Lue as the head coach, but you can't trust Paul George, and that's a big concern. Like everybody, all right, regular season Paul George is the thing. We get it. But players get their big contracts based on, in my opinion, what you do in the postseason. And that man has done nothing to get that big contract that he's got in Los Angeles. And they didn't have a choice but to sign him because they gave up everything for him. So my thing is this: I think that it's a high possibility that maybe Kawhi Leonard may think about exiting Clipperland after this season. Nobody's talking about it, but he may quietly just leave. And what will they have left? They invested all of that stuff into a guy that only committed to them for 2 years. Typical Clippers. And I love it. I absolutely love it.
Okay. I just want to bring something up really quick, because I know we're kind of running out of time, but before I ask you the question that we ask everybody, I just want to point out the Houston Rockets have lost 18 straight games. Have they won a game without James Harden this year?
Yes, they have.
They did? Are you sure?
Yeah,
Christian Wood had like some 30-20 game.
They started off really well after the Harden trade. I think that they might have been like 4-2 or something like that. And then
John Wall
18 straight games.
And then but listen, John
They're
Wall has been
11
hurt.
and 28. You realize that they're 11. So that means the last time they won a game, they were 11 and 10. They were above 500.
It's fun. It's fun
Yikes.
stat. They lost, was it 18 in a row?
Yeah.
And they still have a better record than the Timberwolves. So,
Which is amazing. I don't get that. The Timberwolves can't get anything right.
Look at it. We're looking at it from the Houston Rockets standpoint. Is that they're bad and they have their draft pick, so they'll be fine. They'll get Cade Cunningham, and nobody will care next season.
Anthony Edwards is a bona fide stud, though. That kid's gonna be a problem. That kid's gonna be a problem.
Yeah, he's good, man.
He's a bucket. That kid's a bucket.
yeah, he's with Karl Anthony Towns, and they're not winning games.
Could you imagine?
Win.
Could you imagine if Minnesota gets the number 1 pick next year again, and they get Cade, they get Anthony Edwards, they get Karl Anthony Towns, and they probably move D'Angelo Russell.
Oof.
Like that's frightening.
I don't see Big Cat staying there for too much longer though. I think he's gonna be be on the first thing smoking. I think the Knicks, that if there's any superstars that are gonna be on the trade market coming up, I think the Knicks are gonna be one of those teams that are gonna be like at the top of the list.
I agree. I think they're gonna make a big splash.
Don't fall into that trap, though.
Don't fall
into that trap. It happens every single time that there's a big free agent class. Everyone wants to go to the Knicks all of a sudden. Right. And the biggest free agent we've seen in all our lifetimes is Amari Stoudemire.
Well, I think I think Cat would be a legit free agent for them to get. I don't think that they can go wrong with that. That's not like a that's not like a B level signing. That's an
Correct.
A top level signing. So if they can get that'll be,
Yes.
he'll arguably be the second or third best center to ever play in their organization. So
What they really need is they need LeBron to retire so he can stop,
yes, that too.
hogging up all the championships like Brady does in the NFL. But okay, we asked this question to everybody we interview. Who is the greatest athlete of all time in any sport?
Oh man, an all time in any
sport.
Now, before you answer, your interpretation of athlete can be whatever you want.
It's all up to you. Like no
it
pressure.
doesn't it doesn't. There's no strict confines in the definition of what an athlete is. Just
and
in
there's
your
no
mind,
wrong answer.
Right, no wrong answer. Exactly.
Man.
strictly opinionated.
Unless you tell us it's like Langston Galloway, then we'll have to kick you
Yeah,
off.
that'd be a little strange.
No. I'm thinking because it's really hard.
Yeah.
Because I want to say Usain Bolt just as who he is. Just someone who's not like the ability since we were 4 years old. It was the coolest thing in the world to be the fastest person on the face of the planet.
Yeah.
And he was that forever. He won every medal for it. And the only other person that I'm thinking about, it's him, it's Serena, or it's Michael Phelps. And I think I'm inclined to say Bolt just because of first the stature of the human being. He
6'5".
can play.
Yeah.
He can play whatever sport he chooses. If he wanted to be in the NFL, if he would be the best receiver of all time. I think if he wanted to play soccer, he would be one of the best strikers of all time.
Well, he tried.
Yeah, but that was post, winning 18 gold medals or whatever he did. So we'll give him a little credit. But
all right,
I think I got to roll with him.
My man. See,
Usain
Justin
Bolt.
Paura. He
Mark
is
it
my
down.
man. He went with Usain Bolt. That was that's my athlete of all time, man. That's my guy.
Yeah. No one even challenged him. It
Nope.
was insane.
Not even close.
You are, by the way, outside of Barry, you are our first Usain Bolt.
Congratulations.
You are our first Usain Bolt. The only
Who do you
repeat
guys
answer, mine is Tiger Woods.
I like that
We're
one.
talking. Yeah, okay, but we understand what athlete. I understand.
It's your interpretation.
Right.
I agree. He's a winner, and no one won like he did when he was young. I actually
Listen. The guy won a major championship
with one
in
leg.
2008, and then won his next one in 2019.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody has had control or domination of a single sport than Tiger Woods has had over golf.
Yeah.
Probably Wayne Gretzky.
Brady or Gretzky. I was thinking Gretzky too, but I can't back up with hardcore hockey stats.
I'm surprised no one has said Gretzky yet. My answer
has
is
said Gretzky.
He was in
Nobody, by the way.
Nobody respects hockey like that, but they should say Gretzky.
Justin, here's another one. Nobody yet has said LeBron James.
No one.
Mm-hmm.
So the only reason I don't think you can is because, first if you're debating if they're the best in their sport, they can't be the best athlete ever. That's my only opinion on. Like, there's no debate on Tiger Woods in golf, Usain Bolt in track and field, Michael Phelps in swimming, Serena Williams in tennis, and Gretzky in hockey, and then Brady in football. There's no debate on those. There's a debate in basketball, and it's probably the most, beat to death debate of all time.
Yeah, MJ or LeBron, right?
Right. So if you don't, and look, like LeBron, kind of like what I said with Bolt, he can play every sport. He is a freak. When you think about athlete, I don't know if there's many people more athletic than him, but you also have to consider winning, and you have to consider dominating your sport. And the fact that we compare him to Michael means that he cannot be, we're going to compare him and Michael to whoever else you bring to the table. So to me, it's not fair to say that.
See, that's my thing. Like when I kind of pondered that question for the first time, I really focused on the second part of it. I focused on the in their own sport part of it more than the athlete part of it. It's like, so my answer, for example, is Mariano Rivera. Now, obviously, he's not the greatest athlete ever, but the reason why I choose him is in my opinion, I don't think there's anybody who has dominated their respective position in terms of separating themselves from like, okay, so like he's the best and he's so solidified as the best that you can't even name me who the second best closing pitcher of all time is. So
Trevor Hoffman.
Stop it. Again, I see again. And if you look up their numbers, they're not even in the same stratosphere. So
yeah, it's not the gap between 1 and 2 in closers is not even remotely close.
That's what I'm saying. So Mariano, no one has dominated a single single position in sports for 2 decades the way that Mariano Rivera did as a closing pitcher.
And through one pitch. The guy threw one pitch for 20 years and nobody could hit it.
He won championships.
Yeah, that's the definition of just punching your time card. You just do one thing extremely well, better than anyone else on the planet.
Consistent
and I agree.
Domination.
That's a good. He's the only person I think you could put in the baseball category, because there's no like when you compare hitters, there's a debate. When you compare starters, there's debate. There's no debate on closers.
Right.
Sure.
I don't know. You don't think you could put Babe Ruth in that conversation?
Babe Ruth played in an all-white league, Mike. Stop it. Stop using.
Matt, all I'm saying, if we're talking, no, listen, though.
I don't buy that
at the time, right?
I
at the
agree,
time,
man. I'm with you.
at the
We
time,
could have. The three of us could have played in the MLB at that time.
We
well, wait a minute. Wait. Babe Ruth was hitting more home runs than divisions at that time. Like there were divisions of teams.
Could Babe Ruth
and Babe Ruth was out hitting literal divisions.
Could Babe Ruth hit a home run off Jacob deGrom?
Yes.
You're out of your mind.
I think he could.
You're out of your mind.
I think Babe Ruth, his stat line, if Babe Ruth played today, his stat line would be he'd probably hit about 210 and he'd hit about 80 home runs a year.
He'd hit like Gary Sanchez last year. That's what Babe Ruth would hit like this year.
I think Babe Ruth would be I think if Babe Ruth played in the live ball era right now, not in the dead ball era, in the live ball era, he'd have about like between 950 to 1,000 home runs in his career.
What were pitchers even reaching back then? Speed wise.
75.
I don't know. You probably had a pitcher every now and again that threw 90.
Babe Ruth was, they were, Babe Ruth wasn't facing Aroldis Chapmans.
They didn't have shotguns to even tell how fast they were throwing.
They would race
all
a
I'm
pigeon
saying
against
is,
the baseball
is
and
that
see which one was
it's
faster.
not like Babe Ruth was the best player in his era. It's that Babe Ruth was better than teams in his era.
Look up Josh Gibson from the Negro Baseball League.
I mean, sir,
yeah,
Babe Ruth would hit 60 home runs a year.
Matt,
the next closest guy would hit like 4.
That's what I was just about to ask you. I'll say to you, Matt. You think Babe Ruth can hit off a guys like in the Negro Leagues? Do you think that he would have a shot to actually be competitive?
Look up Josh.
Look at Josh
from the Negro
You don't think that
Josh
Babe
Gibson
Ruth could hit a home run off Satchel Paige?
And their stats weren't even accurately recorded back then.
Josh Gibson hit over 1,000 home runs.
Bob Gibson.
No, I said Josh.
No, Josh Gibson.
Josh Gibson. He hit over 1,000. He hit over 1,000 home runs in the Negro Leagues.
Not the Cardinals pitcher.
And that's that's fine. That's fine. All I'm saying is that conversation does have to be had. He's not my greatest athlete ever. I'm just saying that if that's the parameter of which we're speaking, right? You dominated your sport at that time more than anybody else, and it wasn't even close.
Oh, okay. So, but we're saying all time
was dominating baseball more than anybody has probably ever dominated a sport at any era.
So
at one point,
but you're constricting it to a window. The question is of all time. So if you want to say, if you want to say Babe Ruth dominated baseball from 1925
so then that can't be,
to 1935.
That's fine. So then that can't be used as a parameter then.
Right. But that's like saying that Jordan in the 90s is your answer because he dominated for a single decade. You know what I mean? It's not exactly.
You take 6 years of Jordan's career. Okay, Jordan for 6 years had a better 6-year run than probably any athlete ever.
Yeah.
But you're right. It isn't a collection of that. So anyway, okay.
Right. That was good. That was good though. I like that argument.
Good debate, boys. Good debate. I like it.
I love it. You got my mind running wild now. I'm gonna think about this.
Lots to think about.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Justin, it's been a pleasure, man. It's been fun. Like, you have great knowledge of the NBA. I love it. So tell everybody about what you have going on in the future. Promote your podcast. Please do what you want to do right now.
Yeah, for sure. JP Hoops podcast under the Book It Sports Podcast Network. I host it with myself every Tuesday and Friday. And, we got an episode recording tonight. It'll be out there tomorrow. So if you want to go hear about some NBA stuff, maybe I'll throw some March Madness things in there since we got the tournament starting up tomorrow. I'll definitely do that. And I'm trying to get more guests on the show as we go. So I'd love to talk to you guys again on my side of things.
Definitely,
sure,
man.
man.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, that is all for All Even Live exclusive. I am Barry Grant Jr., host of the All Even podcast. To my left is the great Matt Cataruzolo. Down on the bottom is Mike Guido, host of Guido's Gridiron Blitz. And we had Justin Paura on the show. And, so it's been a pleasure. So until next week, we'll see you guys.